For me, Earth Day is really an opportunity to take a day to deeply reflect on how your household is running, whether it's cars and food and waste management, all of the lights and energy and power consumption that you have, and just chat about things that you can do to make your carbon footprint and water consumption more sustainable than the previous year.
Welcome to Cleantech Forward, a Foresight podcast where we explore clean tech customers, capital, and Canada's path to net zero. Tune in to learn more about Canada's most exciting clean tech startups, industry success stories, investor insights, and academic initiatives as we accelerate the growth and impact of clean tech together.
This Cleantech Forward podcast is supported by Gowling WLG. A global leader in intellectual property law, Gowling WLG works alongside Canadian clean tech companies to develop IP strategies that maximize business opportunities and increase market share while protecting valuable innovation. From idea to investment to international expansion, Gowling WLG understands the potential of your intellectual property at every stage of growth. Visit gowlingwlg.com/cleantech to learn how they can support your business today. Hi, I'm Jeanette Jackson, CEO of Foresight Canada. Happy Earth Day. Today, in honor of this special day, we're doing something a little different. Our VP of Operations, Elizabeth Thorsen, is going to flip the script and interview me about my journey into the clean tech space. Elizabeth, welcome to Cleantech Forward.
Thanks, Jeanette. I'm so excited to be hosting this episode and joining in on the podcast. Long-time listener, first-time host. I've been at Foresight now for just shy of 2 years and have had the chance to work really closely with Jeanette. You might not always see me, both because I'm a bit of an introvert, but also I work a lot behind the scenes on things like supporting our marketing, communications, and events teams, on our internal business operations, and also strategic and industry partnerships and collaborations. So it's going to be fun for me today to take a step out of my comfort zone and turn the tables on you, Jeanette.
Awesome. I'm super excited to see how this goes.
All right, let's dive right in. This is a special bonus Earth Day episode, so I want to start there. What does Earth Day mean to you, and what will you be doing, if anything, to recognize the day this year?
Wow. Well, let's start off with the fact that I am a mother of a 15-year-old. And so every year, Earth Day is a big day for us at the Jackson household. We do try to make every day Earth Day, but as you know, schedules are busy, kids are at school running around. And so for me, Earth Day is really an opportunity to take a day to deeply reflect on how your household is running, whether it's cars and food and waste management, all of the lights and energy and power consumption that you have, and just chat about things that you can do to make your carbon footprint and water consumption more sustainable than the previous year. And so we do everything like turning off the lights early, shutting down the TV, putting on some candles, spending some time playing some board games, and just making sure that we're recognizing that this is an important day, not only for us, but globally. We can all connect on what is certainly an important day to ensure that the earth can get back to its original health and prosperity.
That's so important. And I see and I hear so many of my, friends, colleagues, family members making changes in their individual lives and their personal lives to be more sustainable, to be greener. And I want to talk a little bit, maybe not just about what people can do individually, but what can industry, what can, larger companies, smaller companies do to be a bit more green? Last year for Earth Day, you wrote a piece on the idea that platitudes are a threat to our planet, essentially highlighting challenges related to translating intent into action. We see every year around Earth Day, social media campaigns. Lots of companies post photos of, green earths with inspiring messages. But what are they doing? How are they actually working to make business operations greener or more efficient? What's really backing up that social media celebration? And how can we make this more than just performative, but actual action? I think this year we're really starting to see a bit of a change already. Earth Day messaging is coming out earlier with pledges to move really from platitudes to progress. Do you think that the meaning of Earth Day is changing as a sense of urgency around climate issues rises?
Sure. Well, let's dig into sort of the first part of your question here around industry transformation. in particular to net zero. At the end of the day, we've certainly started to see momentum build in organizations where public stakeholders are holding these organizations and companies to a higher account when it comes to their carbon footprint, their waste, their operations, and just transparency across the board. People want to buy good products, but they also want to buy products that are sustainable. And so over the past several years, we've seen many corporates step up and put forward their intent to be greener. It's often at the time, really an opportunity to increase shareholder values as well. So that's where the platitudes and versus progress really come into frame. What industry can do is continue to ensure that across the entire organization at all levels, that there is complete alignment on how their organization is going to really move the needle on their path to net zero by 2030, 2040, 2050, depending on the sector. They need to be very transparent through reporting and report cards on how they're going to get there, the actual tactical steps. Obviously, we're not there operating the businesses, but consumers are business owners and business leaders too. And they want to see that it's not only talking the talk, but it's walking the walk, and that these actions are being completed and accounted for, and that the impact that those actions are having on those targets are being met. Now, taking that sort of to a bit of a broader lens, we've seen that certain industries have been more progressive than others. And what we're starting to see by the momentum around climate sustainability, and quite frankly, the fact that there's over 130 trillion potential dollars there of investments and capital that can be infused into corporations and companies so that they can scale and grow more sustainably. I mean, they're going to be really held to account. They're going to have these business models and these strategies and, quite frankly, cultures and values embedded into their organization if they're going to be able to attract that type of capital to grow, and if they're going to be able to attract the type of talent that they need to satisfy all those growth demands. In terms of the meaning of Earth Day and how it's evolving as a sense of urgency and climate around and issues around climate, I mean, certainly I think Earth Day is a day where everyone can at least have their eyes open for who's making some big announcements, who's new to the game, really reflecting that Earth Day is here and it's going to be here to stay. But I would just challenge that, again, Earth Day not be one day, it be every day. And so, again, it is a day that we can all recognize and hold hands and sort of align to. But at the end of the day, we need to see that there's significant momentum and recognition of these challenges month by month, week by week, so that year over year, these types of impacts are being felt through true reduction in GHG emissions, true solidarity between stakeholders on the path to net zero, and true inclusiveness, so that all communities and individuals from all walks of life are going to get the benefits of better health, safer living through addressing climate change.
That's so important. And I want to pull out one of the themes that I heard in your response, which is investing. This year, the theme of Earth Day is invest in our planet. And I know that may sound daunting in a world where cost of living and inflation are already increasing, but let's talk a bit about the cost of complacency. For people individually, for industries, sometimes the cost of buying sustainable goods or the cost of vetting new technologies, even just changing from an attitude and a mindset of business as usual, can really be seen as too expensive to pursue. But what's the true cost of not acting now, to businesses, to people individually, versus what's the value of investing in our planet now? And really, whose role is it? Is it on industry? Is it government? Is it individuals? What roles do we play in the green transition?
Sure. Well, the stark reality is that if we don't start acting now, that life as we know it will not be the same. So if we think there is devastation through the impacts of climate change in Abbotsford, British Columbia, in Australia with the fires, in Europe with flooding, I mean, it's just the number of instances in the devastating impact this has, displacing millions of people because they no longer have safe drinking water, a place to live, and the ability to, quite frankly, survive because of the unpredictable climate impacts and climate change effects just by pure temperatures. We have a lot of thinking to do. Some of the new reports out are suggesting that the path to these events is only increasing more quickly. We haven't been able to move the needle on the Paris Agreement in terms of getting temperatures to not increase anything more than 1.5 degrees. So it's not looking great. Again, I think there's a lot of discussion about how we can do it. And perhaps what's happening is that we're spending too much time talking and not enough time doing. And in terms of who's accountable for this, it really is everyone. I think, we obviously want to look at policymakers and ensure that they're setting targets that are clear and that really inspire industry to be more progressive in their operations. We also expect industry to act because they tend to have the most capital and resources and sort of control the supply of goods and services from the root. But let's not forget that, as consumers, we too have a responsibility. And I've had some really great discussions with some folks over the last while. Industry can do everything it can to, reduce on the production side of energy and fuels and goods and services, whether it's plastics and whatever you can think of. But at the end of the day, if we as consumers can take a step back and think, I'm going to use half as much toilet paper, no plastic bags, no single-use plastic or coffee cups. Nothing bothers me more when I, throw a small piece of garbage. I do eat out sometimes and have to throw something away, which sometimes I reflect on as well. But I look in and I see a big box of a big garbage bin full of coffee cups, and that's sort of for me why I refuse to use or drink coffee outside of the home now. But everyone's responsible. Our education system is responsible. Our healthcare system is responsible. Parents are responsible to educate their children. Also, perhaps help some of our parents understand sort of what they can do. Education and sharing across as many stakeholder groups and levels of accountability is really critical to the success. And then, finally, in terms of our, theme here on invest in our planet, I think we need to reflect on who's going to really benefit from those investments. I mentioned earlier here, $130 trillion. What worries me about some of those claims is the fact that it will be standard finance terms, the same people making the same money or more, because of a tremendous opportunity in the trillions that we're going to see through this sort of green economy transition. But perhaps that's not the best path forward for investing in our planet. Perhaps we need to think outside of the box on new investment terms, new business models, and really make sure that we're not just doing the same thing over so that the same people get wealthier, that we're having true distribution of wealth and prosperity while we're working through that net zero transition and while we're putting the earth first in all of our business and consumer decisions.
When you mentioned who's going to benefit from these investments, my mind went to, well, everyone. And, when I'm thinking about, you're in the Metro Vancouver area, I just myself moved here in 2021 from Ontario. Since I've moved, I have been through, and all British Columbians, really a drought last spring, then a dangerous heat wave, which broke all-time temperature records and claimed the lives of nearly 600 people in British Columbia. It was the worst wildfire season in decades. An entire community was lost in mere minutes in the community of Lytton. And then in fall, there were atmospheric rivers, which led to the single most expensive natural disaster in Canadian history. That's, of course, ignoring other anomalies, like as of January 2022, Vancouver had more snow than Calgary, Alberta, which, as you know, is not really normal for Vancouver. So it seems like there are more of these abnormal, once-in-a-lifetime climate events, and they seem to be happening back to back to back. And that's why I'm thinking, investing in clean technologies, investing in climate technologies is really going to benefit everyone. Can you tell me maybe a little bit more about the importance of not just building innovations that are meant to address some of these challenges and lower emissions, but also the importance of adoption and adaptation and its urgency?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you know, at Foresight, we've really spent a lot of time ensuring that the innovation community is more connected to industry, whether it's through innovation challenges, road mapping, reverse pitches, and really connecting those dots. But you hit the nail on the head. Over the last year plus, we've been reflecting as an organization not only on the sort of responsive nature of clean tech, solving a problem that exists because we know how those systems and manufacturing processes, et cetera, work. But now we're saying maybe we also need to be really thoughtful in adaptation and prevention and making sure that the systems and processes and products and technologies and how we build communities and how we build buildings and where those communities go and the type of infrastructure to support flooding and the materials that we use so that we don't lose thousands of buildings when temperatures rise, and that we're looking at best practices to ensure temperatures can be regulated. I mean, in some instances, we're going from 40-degree weather to 5-degree weather in what feels like a period of a few weeks, and obviously crops and people suffer from all of that uncertainty and irregularity. And so when we think of forward looking, obviously industry needs to be at the table. They need to be clear on their intentions and where they have gaps when it comes to innovation internally. But as communities and broader ecosystems, we can connect and say, look, how are these communities going to look and thrive 5, 10, 20, 30 years plus down the road, given what could be projected to be what is today unlivable terms? And how do we start thinking and investing in those solutions now? There's a really interesting group in the Netherlands, the Global Center for Adaptation. Incredible leadership there, and they're really ensuring that narrative is front and center with all levels of government globally, with tons of different stakeholders, our Indigenous families, our all these communities that need to think, if they don't take action now, what are some of the higher risk impacts of climate change, and how can we invest? And it's not just about capital. How can we ensure that how we build and protect our communities' security, secure our communities, has climate top of mind, not just some of the other security issues that we've traditionally thought about?
That's incredible. Your passion comes through in every response, and I want to maybe switch gears for a minute and learn a little bit more about you, or have you share a little bit more about your history with listeners. Tell me a bit about your career. Kind of what was your first role, and then how did you get from that into clean tech? What really drew you into clean technology as a sector?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story, and I will get a little bit personal here. But I, was always sort of a serial entrepreneur from a very young age. I had my first paper route when I was 8. I had a more sort of sustainable job at some restaurants when I was 13, 14, and actually was the youngest manager in Canada for KFC when I was 15. So always looked at everything as a little business and how I could improve and grow. But it was really sort of my experience of moving to Europe. I had the opportunity to live there from 1999 to 2001, and really got a sense that the culture around sustainability and even just transportation, how we move, and the availability of public transportation and not always relying on a car, and systems around the community or the city when it comes to waste management. These things really stuck with me. It just seemed like a cleaner, healthier, better way of life. And so, when I came back to Canada, I certainly embarked on my business degree, but, off the side, I was thinking to myself, like, what can I do to look at clean tech and sustainability? Is it on the policy side? Is it on the economic side? And where I landed was back to my roots on the entrepreneurial sort of business side. So I started my first clean tech company very close to finishing my degree. And it was, at the time, solid state lighting was the next generation of lighting that reduced power consumption by 90%. And we were really looking at technologies to accelerate the adoption of those technologies by higher performance, lower cost, and sort of allowing the technology to more closely replicate existing technologies. Sometimes that's a barrier to adoption. If the incumbent is a certain way and everyone's used to it, how do you ensure that there's sort of a more natural progress, because consumers kind of can get nervous. So worked really hard on that and just continue to fall in love with everything sustainability and climate. And during that first sort of year when I was starting the business, I remember I met a partner, and it's funny because he was cooking me dinner and he didn't recycle the cans. And I was like, we cannot date or go any further if these are your habits. So everything else I could have dealt with, but everything to sort of the habits around sustainability and recycling at that time sort of came into play there. And of course he changed those habits, and there we go. Now a 15-year-old daughter. So, but no, for me, I feel this burning desire inside to always want to try to be more sustainable, to be more of a minimalist. I know it's sometimes hard. All of us get caught up. So I'm certainly far from perfect. And I have a lot of more work to do. But hopefully, with Foresight and building a platform and a community of passionate people on sustainability, adaptation, clean tech, adoption, capital, all the pieces that we can create an impact together that we could never create or have individually. And so that's what keeps me up at night, concerned about the planet, and waking up in the morning excited to take on the challenge with an amazing team and network, of course, including yourself.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's one thing that I'm feel so privileged to work with the team at Foresight, that it's not just a job. I think when you are focused on clean tech and sustainability, it is truly almost like a life calling, and it's not, you can't just sort of clock out at 5 o'clock and forget about sustainability, because it really does creep into every aspect of your life, and it needs to. You talked about your daughter, and I've heard a lot about her over the years. Tell me maybe how this has shaped you. And I want to clarify, I'm not asking how you've balanced a business career with having children, though you're welcome to share any insights you have there, but more so how leaving a livable planet for the next generation for your daughter drives or shapes the work that you do, or your approach to clean tech and sustainability as a whole.
For sure. I'm really lucky. I know lots of people have lots of children, and that did cross my mind, but I have one daughter, and she is my only legacy. And perhaps there's a lot of emotion and sentiment there as we, continue to see some of the impacts and uncertainty and unpredictability that climate change is causing in regions around the world. I mean, we have to really think about what kind of future we're leaving our children. And if it's not a future of health, sustainability, happiness, opportunity, connectivity, and dare I say, just complete inclusiveness, then I would feel like I've really not used what I think all of us have in terms of our individual strengths and our individual perspectives to make the world a place for future generations to come. I'm also really lucky. I've started to see a shift. I've got lots of friends of all ages with different age children, and I've started to see a shift in their thoughts. I mean, not everyone's jumping in and figuring out how they're going to get their next car. They want to be sustainable and take public transit. Not everyone's thinking about how they want to embark on these stressful careers. They want to work together and have a higher balance of quality of life than perhaps some of us previous generations have done. So if I can do anything to allow those next generations to have less stress and climate impact on their day-to-day activities, those are certainly two things that I can wake up to continue to push forward every day.
That's incredible. And working in the climate and sustainability space, it is difficult. Some days are a lot more challenging than others. There's setbacks, there's challenges related to pace of work, and there's a lot of climate anxiety. And I don't want to focus too much on that. I'd love to end on a high note. What gives you hope?
Well, I mean, what gives me hope is the next generation. I think they're smarter, they're more effective, they're more collaborative. I mean, there's certainly folks that want to have a lot more financial stability, but I've noticed the kids saying, look, I don't want to work till death. I want to work to live. And those things keep me up every day, excited and hopeful. I'd also say just the incredible Foresight network. I mean, not only the team and the partners and the collaborators, but the passion and the energy and the focus and the drive to be an agent of change, to break down silos, to break down barriers, to have tough conversations. I have hope that the narrative is changing and that sustainability is just going to become our way of life. And we're not going to be having conversations about if there really is a climate crisis. We're going to be saying, yes, there is a climate crisis and it's all hands on deck. And we're all going to be part of the solution. And some people may feel the impacts at different stages. So it's certainly not going to be perfect. And there's certainly a lot of steps to take, but I certainly think we are well on our way. And I think there's some really interesting indicators globally, whether it's from governments and from some of our largest institutions that are helping ensure that narrative is clear across the board. So that gets me excited and hopeful for the future to come.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And I think that you've really left us on a really positive note that we all need to come together. We all need to work together. And maybe that could be, part of what drives us this Earth Day. Jeanette, thank you so much. It was a pleasure being on the other side of the table and interviewing you for a change. And hope we get to talk to you more and learn more about your background and your career in another episode to follow.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time when we're back with Gareth Brown of Clear Renewables. Don't forget to rate and review Cleantech Forward on iTunes and subscribe to the podcast wherever you can.
To learn more about Foresight's programs, events, and more, visit us at foresightcac.com or follow us on social at Foresight CAC.